Welcome back to Burn the Ship, the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs to professionals to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Ezra Brown. Without further ado, I'm going to allow my guest to introduce himself.
Hi, Ezra. My name is John Derr. I'm the owner and CEO of LornaDave Agency, which is a talent agency for television news anchors, reporters, sportscasters, and meteorologists.
All right, that's super awesome. So you're going to be the first that we've interviewed in this vertical with that niche,
Nice.
That's super cool. I think, and also I feel like you're a little bit of a serial entrepreneur, if I remember correctly from our phone call. That's not your first endeavor, or that is your first endeavor with Lauren David.
Pretty much this was, yeah. I worked in television news for years and then started this agency, yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. So, John, kind of tell us a backstory of how you got into this and kind of what this journey's been like for you.
Yeah, so like I said, I started after I graduated college. I got started in the television news business. I actually studied film and also journalism. And, at some point I realized, hey, I'm not going to move out to LA or anything like that. And what do I want to do with my life? And I realized that putting together television news stories is a lot like putting together a little film, just kind of on a daily basis. So I looked into, I graduated from Towson University, which is outside of Baltimore.
Oh yeah, good old Townsend.
Yeah, and I found a little TV station in Hagerstown, Maryland, and they hired me as a photographer. And what a photographer is in television news is they go out with reporters and they shoot the stories. But I got hired as a photographer with the agreement that I could report for them on weekends for free on my own time, just to get that experience. So I started as a photographer and started reporting on weekends for free. And within like 2 or 3 weeks, I was hired as a full-time reporter, which was cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I had to shoot my own stories, which a lot of reporters do now. So I did that, and within 6 months of reporting, I got promoted to the 11 o'clock anchor. So I anchored the 11 o'clock news and also reported for the early news. And then I went off and did sports and ran a sports, worked for a station where I was the sports director. So I ran the sports department, was the main sports anchor in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
That's awesome.
Got back into news in Maine, where I was an evening anchor, and then went to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where I was hired as a morning anchor, and with the goal of then going to Baltimore or Washington to be an anchor. But somewhere along the way, I had this entrepreneurial spirit, and I had dealt with agents, and I had helped a lot of people in our business get jobs, because working in television news, it's a very unique business to get jobs. It's unlike any other business. It's not like you can call and call and call like you do to get seen and get interviews, and you need to put together a reel, and it's just a very unique business to get jobs in. So I helped a lot of people with that, and they would say, "Hey, John, you're helping me more than my agent. You should be an agent." And one day I kind of took that seriously. And I dealt with agents as talent too, and saw some things I liked and saw some things I didn't like. So I thought, well, I can start this business and just incorporate the things I liked, and then kind of do the opposite of the things I didn't like.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so that was 25 years ago. So I started the business 25 years ago.
Man, that's awesome. So being from a news anchor to being the guy that's pretty much sending out the talent. So what's that shift been like for you? Because that's a massive shift, going from being the guy on the TV to being the guy that places the guy on TV.
Yeah, and when I started the business, you're not making any money yet. So I was still on TV, but the station I worked at allowed me to switch from weekday mornings to weekends. So I had 2 free days during the week to work in the business. And then as the business started being successful, I cut back to 4 days to 3 days to 2 days. And then I was just working weekends. And then I was just working, I think, the Saturday shift for another year or two before I finally gave it up. Because I was afraid to completely close the door on television news, because I had done that for so long.
Right.
And it's like, is this business really going to sustain me? And then as it did, and I was making, more than enough to support me and my family. And my oldest son at that point was 5 or 6, and I wanted to coach him. And I thought, you know what, it's time to give this up completely.
Right. Absolutely.
So it was a big change going from the talent to behind the scenes and helping the talent. But like I said, it was kind of a gradual effect over a 2 or 3 year period. And,
awesome.
A lot of people like to be on TV. They like being under the lights, and I was never in it for that. I loved being a journalist.
Yeah.
and I really don't miss it that much because I still feel I'm part of the game now by helping all my clients since they're on.
Absolutely. You got skin in the game everywhere now.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
That's that's awesome. So John, kind of tell me. So you said you went to school for journalism and then film as well, or is that what your undergrad was, journalism?
It was radio, television, and film, so it was kind of all of it. Although I
Right.
focused more on film and
Uh
then
huh.
more on journalism, but then I studied journalism more as I got into it, kind of on my own after college. So,
Okay. Yeah. So you were in school to do film work then.
yep, yep, and kind of a overall thing, radio, television, and film, but I focused a little more on film.
Absolutely. So you're kind of like you guys are like the pioneers in that space at that time, of like getting out there and being the first classes that did that film studies. I would assume it being in the probably the late '90s, early '90s.
I'm older than that. I graduated from Towson in '88, so yeah, it was
Shoot,
back a day.
yeah. So
Yeah,
y'all
the
might have,
funny thing,
yeah.
yeah, when I started in Hagerstown, so I got started there in 1989, and it's funny because like the year before I started there, they were still shooting television news stories on film. So
Really?
they film and then they had to develop it and spice it. So they would tell stories about that. Um,
No way.
yeah, so that was they were doing that in the 86, 87, and but they were like, oh, you got it easy now with these big recording on actually on tape.
Right. What
So
would you say some of the nuances are, or I guess the problems and the nuances versus when you first came into the game? What would you say that those problems you see mainly nowadays?
I mean the business has changed a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, do you mean in television news or what I do as an agent or both?
What you do as an agent, like there's well, really both, because they probably teeter hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest change I've had in my business is when I started it. And again, we're talking 25 years. Like I said earlier, you send out reels. So what a reel is basically showing somebody's work. So if you're a television
Hmm.
anchor, you're showing them anchoring, a little montage, then anchoring. If you're a reporter, showing them reporting, that sort of thing. So you have to put together your best work. To, that's how you get jobs. That's the most important tool in the job search. So when I started
Right.
the business, I was
It's like
sending
your
out.
60-second elevator pitch.
Yeah, yeah. And really, it's you got a 5 second pitch because a news director puts that on and they look at it for a couple seconds. They're either going to keep watching or next one.
Exactly. It's like scrolling on your phone nowadays.
Exactly, same thing, but just back in the day. They still do it
Gotcha.
now, obviously. But back then, I was sending out VHS tapes. And I had in my office, I had this big thing to make VHS tapes and to make like 8, 10 at a time, and then you have to mail them out, and it was time consuming. Then I was so happy when news directors finally started taking DVDs because now you're talking it's easier to ship, cheaper, and it was easier to burn those. And then finally, everything went digital, and obviously now I don't go to the post office. It's
Right.
just, hey, I've got everything on my iMac. I do my editing on there, and then just you send your digital reel. So
Right.
it took a long time to get to that point, though. But it
No,
seems absurd
absolutely.
now. But now you just send links.
No, for sure, because we do. We have the podcast stuff, so I'm very intrigued by production. It's just not my. I
Yeah,
can't do the editing on the back end, any of that stuff, because my ADHD is not set for all that.
yeah,
That's not what makes me focus. That kind of gives me like an overwhelming feeling when I see all those buttons back there. It gets me crazy. That's why we have Scott back here doing our editing
you
for
guys
us.
got yeah.
But no, so now being the agency and staffing out these people, what would you say is the difference between being that great anchor and then being that mediocre on the cusp of possibly not having a job? Like that bottom
Uh,
and top of the totem pole. What's that difference?
yeah, it could be a couple different things. One of it's natural talent. I mean, some people
Right.
you see them out there and and I know it's like, boom, they have it. They're an anchor, and they just have that presence. But other than that, it's repetition. I mean, that's
Hmm.
what I tell, and it was the same for me. I mean, most people when
Absolutely.
they start anchoring or reporting, but anchoring, you're stiff. It just takes repetitions and to get better and better and better. And it's stuff that you can even practice, at home. And I tell people that all the time. Practice reading at home and that sort of thing. But the thing is, it's hard to teach how to be yourself on camera, yet also, have that kind of commanding presence that an anchor needs.
Right.
You don't want to sound like you're reading the news, and that's hard to do without those repetitions because you want to sound like you're talking to you or to a friend
Right.
or to a family
So you
member.
guys are reading off a screen whenever all
Oh
that's
yeah,
going
there's
on.
there's a teleprompter and you're reading, but you don't want to sound like you're reading, and you don't want to look
Right.
like you're reading the teleprompter. You want to.
Right.
I
So
remember.
that's definitely
Yeah,
a I hadn't even thought about it like that because we have a viral YouTube channel here, and then I'll get on and do some of the stuff, and the improv stuff. It's a lot easier for me to do. You start telling me to be some character,
Yeah.
immediately stiffed up, locked up. I don't know what to do. So yeah, no, what you guys do is completely awesome, and
Yeah,
that's it takes
most of the, if you're an anchor reading a news story, they're reading off a teleprompter. The only person that really isn't is the meteorologist, because they're doing weather and they don't have it scripted in front of them. They're reading basically the weather maps, and
right,
they have
right,
out the weather story in their head. Sportscasters, they have intros and stuff usually on a teleprompter, but then the highlights aren't. So that's them kind of ad libbing too. But so
so
it sounds easy, but it's not. It's hard to
no,
be
absolutely,
yourself when you're reading and not look like you're reading and
right,
still be an authority.
right. So what would you say it was your strong suit whenever you were doing anchor, when you were an anchor?
I mean, I think eventually I became relaxed enough to be myself and to stop trying
Right,
so hard.
right,
And people seemed to like me because I was myself. I mean, my last anchoring job when I started in Allentown, I was the morning anchor, and morning shows allow you to show more personality. It's a
for
morning show,
sure,
you're supposed to have
for
fun,
sure. So
whereas the
everybody's
evening
up and
shows aren't as fun because it's more doom and gloom. You still
right.
have that in the morning shows, but there's more moments made out in the show to have fun, to talk to your co-anchor, to talk to the meteorologist, to talk to traffic, and just have some fun, and that really allows a personality to come out. But for
That's
me, when I
awesome.
stopped taking it so damn seriously, it's like it's just news.
Right.
And if you screw up, it's not a big deal. Everybody screws up, and if you stumble over a word, not a big deal. Just keep going. But it takes a long time to get to that point, uh,
Right.
and it just
No, I mean, now in my, because I go out and network and do my 60-second pitch in front of, 30, 40, 50, 60 people, a couple times a week. It just depends on what that setting in that group is. And I tell you what, whenever I first started a year and a half ago, it was from being a college baseball player to closer to where I didn't have to talk a ton. I could just kind of do what I wanted to do. And then to where now I've got to stand up in front of this group of people and talk, and it's not my teammates that I've ever met. It's a group of a demographic of people that is a lot different than me. They're older than me. I'm the only person in there in my 20s most of the time,
yeah.
and they see me stand up and they're like, "This guy doesn't know his armpit from his finger," and I'm like, "Oh gosh." But I get up and give a good 60 seconds, and then like, man, this guy's pretty put together. But the first couple times I did it, I would stumble over my words, start talking really fast. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you start getting internally hot.
Yeah. And the
And
talking fast, that's something I always have to tell a lot of my younger anchors. It's like, hey, just slow
Mhm.
down, breathe.
Right.
Dead air's all right, just breathe. You have to have a little space between sentences, but it's easy to talk fast when you're nervous, right?
Absolutely. Because some people slow it down and shut down. Some people start speeding it up, and
Yeah.
I'm definitely one of the ones that speeds it up. And what would you say, with the agency? What would you say kind of is the ideal client that you look for to represent?
That's a good question. You would think the ideal one would be the one we talked about earlier, that, hey, you're a natural born anchor.
Right.
And they are to a point. But I
It's like
just want,
salesmen. It's hard to find if they're naturally gonna be good once the spotlight hits. It's good to
yes,
see if they got the personality.
yep. But I want somebody and I don't care if they need a lot of work and a lot of grooming. I like that. I mean, your baseball players, we talked about before all this, and I coach baseball. My sons are all baseball players. And so I like coaching. I coach my clients on how to improve, and I enjoy that. So
Right.
they might not be a natural born anchor, but I think I can help turn them into that.
Right.
But what I'm looking for is just the right attitude. Somebody who cares about the business, who cares
Right.
about journalism. That's so nice. Instead of, hey, I want to be on TV. I want to be, an influencer. I want to be. Let's talk about journalism and let's do that.
Right.
That's what we want. And somebody who takes it seriously, I can work with you, and we can get you to be a good anchor. So
Right. No, that's awesome. And then what's it called? Out of all these people that you've represented, through the time, because 25 years, I'm sure you've had hundreds of people come through your agency
yeah,
that you've helped. What is I guess you would say, how they say like 1 in 10 businesses or 1 out of 10 businesses will be there after 5 years,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
1 of 20 will be there after 10 years, or whatever that number is. What's that kind of like for reporters or anchors? Yes.
Um, that's a good question. I think it's changed.
Right.
You've talked about things that have changed over the years. Um, I would say years ago, it was, I'd say about half could stay in the business. It's just a matter how far they go. Some are limited. It's like, hey, your ceiling is this. You're only going to make
Right.
this size market. Your ceiling's higher. And then some people would be satisfied. Hey, I'm in my home market. It's a small market, but that's fine.
Right.
Um, I think the retention code is a lot less now than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to news directors, and news directors are the people who run a news department at a television station. And so they're the
Okay.
people that do the hiring. They're the people I deal with mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of news directors have said that it's just a lot of people that get into the business now don't stick around. So it's not a matter of them making it; it's a matter of them deciding I don't want to make it. This is too much for me, or they get
Right.
out for other reasons. There are a lot of reasons to get out. It's a hard business.
Absolutely.
Work
No
hard.
business is easy, especially
No.
if you don't love anything you're doing.
Yeah.
You won't be there for a long time, and that is something that I listen to people talk about all the time, especially having the podcast. They're like, I didn't love what I was doing, or I didn't love that I was working for somebody. I had my entrepreneurial spirit, and
Yep.
it popped up, and here I am taking a leg out. And then they're like, well, I've been in business 25 years, or I've been in business for 5 years. You never know, but you can tell that there's a different type of fulfillment whenever you go off on your own
Yeah.
and do something like that.
I tell people that all the time too. Ezra, that's a good point. That I love working for myself. I mean, I loved working in television news, but
Right.
I love even more doing what I do. My biggest complaint about my work is the day goes too fast. That's a good problem to have, right?
Absolutely. That means you're
Um,
enjoying every second.
I'm not looking at the clock. I'm like, I got a lot to do, but I enjoy it
Mm-hmm.
because I created it.
Right.
It's my
Ab-
baby. I created it. I care deeply about it. Um, and that's what I tell my clients or prospective clients is nobody's going to work
right.
harder for you than me. I mean, I created this, and it's my name up there. And so when we're
Right.
working together, your name's combined with my name, and my name's combined with your name. So
Right.
we got to be a good
And what
team.
would you say, is the biggest difference of you from year 1 to year 25 now of having your own agency? What would you say that biggest difference is for you?
Um, that's a real good question. I think I've always been an organized person. And you have to, I think, to run your own business successfully or
Absolutely.
not to go
Yeah.
crazy. Uh,
Yeah.
and I have to be organized, so I go a little bit crazy. But I've really learned how to organize even better to get everything done. I've also learned when everything doesn't get done, not to drive myself crazy
Right.
and to be able to leave my office. And my office is in my home, which I love. To be able to leave the office at night and spend time with my wife and with my kids. I still have my phone. If my clients need me, I'm there. But I'm not
Right.
running back into the office going, I've got to edit this. I've got to do this.
Right.
Like I can put things down. And I'm better at that now than I used to be. Year 1, year 2, I was always running in at night, trying to get more stuff accomplished. Now it's like, okay, I will get to that tomorrow, or I'll work, the hours or whatever the hours are. But if a client needs to get a hold of me and it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, I'm there for them. But I also
Right.
need to be able to go spend time with the family, and that's important.
Absolutely. No, that's most important, especially because it keeps you grounded. It
It
keeps you
does.
there, and
It
they're
does.
keeping you, they're the ones that are keeping you sane.
And then you
Oh,
can
well,
work better for
sometimes. Let me
them.
reframe that. Sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes they drive you insane.
yes, yeah. But you can work better
I
for your
tell you that
clients the
right
next
now.
day if you're grounded.
Right, absolutely. And kind of what was that thing, that well, not thing, but did you when you after obviously there's a lot of differences in year 1 to year 25 now, but year 1 obviously you were probably running most of your business on your own if not all of it.
Yeah.
So now have you kind of hired out the things that you weren't good at when you first started, or or have you learned how to just kind of go with the ebbs and flows and do all of it on your own now?
I still do it all.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I'm one of those who, if I want something done right, I do it myself.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I keep my agency to a certain size
Right.
where I don't have to be hiring other people to do things for me. I mean, it keeps me busy, but I'd rather be busy than not busy. Busy,
Absolutely.
and I just feel better getting everything done my way and the way I want.
Absolutely.
So
And then what would you say, well, you obviously you probably know that exact number that's your like Belgian point where you've eaten all the Thanksgiving
yeah,
stuffing on the table and you got to flip that last button out. But no,
yeah,
what's that size that you think or that that you hold that you can hold and still be very efficient in your day to day?
yeah. I like to keep it in the 70 to 80, 90 range for clients.
Hmm.
That seems to be, and that's a mixture of news anchors, news reporters, sports
Right.
announcers, and meteorologists.
Right.
Sometimes go a little bit above that, sometimes go a little bit below that, but that's, a lot of those people are already under contract, so I'm not looking for them. So
Right.
I'm just, talking to them, making sure everything's going well, reviewing their work. So they're
Hmm.
not active job searches.
Right.
But so sometimes it goes a little bit above that. If hey, everybody, 2/3 of them are under contract, so I have room on my roster to add another anchor or two. But
Okay.
sometimes they turn down good people who I would like. That's like I just don't have space right now, and I can't commit myself to somebody else because that would take away from what I give to my other clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's seems like you're very personal with your people. And that's kind of why they stay around. It's hard. Somebody's like, this is my thing is because I see business owners all the time. I'm in the payments world. I do payment processing, so I only talk to decision makers all the time. That's my conversation. I'm either talking to the gatekeeper getting yelled at, or I'm the decision maker having a good conversation. And that is something that I hear very well is that they'll turn down good people just because it keeps their business running at that highest operation content. And that every business I see that says that typically are very, very successful. So I think that is a very interesting take on that too.
Yeah, I mean, when I dealt with agents, I felt like I was male anchor number 72, and that was one of the things I didn't like. And so when I started the agency, I said, I'm never going to do that where my clients are just numbers. I don't want to
Right.
have that many.
Right.
And so when I'm sending clients to a news director, I'm sending a couple, three, four, five, six, maybe seven people for a job where a lot of the big agencies are sending, 30, 40, 50 people.
Right.
Because of that, news directors like to deal with me because I'm not sending them a ton of people.
Right.
So that's a byproduct of it. I wasn't really thinking of. I was just thinking, hey, what can I manage? Still give people that personalized service.
Right.
Uh, but it's helped my reputation getting people jobs because I'm not sending a ton of people.
Right. Absolutely. And I know you got a favorite out of all the types of reporting. Which one's your favorite?
Of clients,
Not yeah. Well, yeah. Hang on. Which was your favorite when you were being an anchor, and versus now as the agent representing these people? Which one's your favorite to represent?
as far as types like anchors, reporters, or anything.
Yeah. 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 Sports broadcasting. Is it news? Is it weather? Which one was your favorite?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, when I did,
Oh no, no, no! I gotta have one though. I need to hear. I gotta have one. I know you got a favorite a little bit. It's like you like the Philadelphia Eagles. You like the Patriots. Up
I'm a
there.
Ravens fan.
Oh yes. I'm sorry about last
I'm in
weekend.
Eagles country though.
I know it. I know it. That's why I went the Eagles first. But
Good one to go to. I mean, when I anchored, I love doing the news, but then I love doing sports. Uh, but then I switched back to news. I got tired of people just talking to me about sports because I'd be out in public. Oh, it's a sports guy.
right.
Uh, and then when I did that, so I enjoyed probably anchoring morning news the best.
Awesome. And what about that was like your favorite? Because that's definitely it's a little different than the other two. I feel like because morning news is kind of you're hearing about late night stuff, like you said, it's gloom or doom at night, and I never really thought about it like that until you just said
Yeah.
that, and then it literally clicked in my mind. I was like, holy cow, I've literally watched that my whole life.
Yeah, I
But
mean morning
the
news
morning side's a little different.
just because it's the hours stink. I used to get up at 2 a.m. That's the worst, but the actual anchoring is the funnest, just because you do have a chance to talk about fun stories and just talk about
Right.
your life sometimes on camera with the co-anchor.
Right.
The only time it wasn't fun was after 9/11.
Uh huh.
For like a month. It was it was horrible to anchor the morning news because the stories were all based on what happened at 9/11. It was just
Right.
brutal.
And at that point in time, you were teetering in between anchoring and your agency at that time, correct?
Yeah, the agency was just starting,
Mm-hmm.
so I was still doing the morning news at that point.
That's awesome.
Yeah, did the first newscast on our station after we did the noon newscast on September 11th. Debating whether we should do a local newscast or stick with the CNN coverage we had on. So
That's awesome.
that was a crazy day.
And then I got two more questions for you.
Sure.
One is going to be if you could go back, John, 20, 25 years when you first, well, let's go back 30 years when you started having that little light twinkle in your head about entrepreneurship. What would you go back and do differently?
I think I would have started this sooner because I love it so much. Because
Right.
it festered in my mind for probably 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Right.
and I think of the enjoyment I get from it, and I wish I'd started it earlier. Uh,
Right.
it's funny though, because you did talk about, whether I was, if I started another business earlier, and I hadn't. But when I started this agency, I was also debating starting another business. There was something fairly novel back then called the internet.
Uh-huh.
And I was discovering, and this is before Spotify and all that, I was discovering all these new bands on the internet. And I was thinking, wow, I'm going to start a radio show, discovering
Hmm.
all these new bands on the internet. And I thought, so I was sending to radio stations, and I thought this could be like, I guess it was before podcasts, it could be its own
Right.
type of podcast. So I'm thinking, if this clicks, I'll go with this. If the business agency clicks, I'll go with this. And I was sending, and I'm into indie alternative type of music, so it was indie alternative type. So I was sending to rock stations and that sort of thing, and they would say, "Yeah, it's interesting all these bands you're saying, but our music has to be, it has to be sounding like these, the U2 type of band or this band or this band. We can't veer off of that." And I was like, "Really?"
Right.
Um, but that's kind of how radio was and is. Um, so I'm glad it won. I'm glad the agency won.
All right. No,
But
that's
again,
awesome. 'Cause
again, I wish I'd started it sooner.
right. No, that's, hear that commonly. That, or I wish I'd have done this differently when I first started. But no, that is something that, I feel it myself because I'm in sales. I'm pretty dang good at what I do on that side of it. But it's in that I always teeter. This is the thought I have is I have a very entrepreneurial spirit. I'm a curious being. Like I want to start my own business, but I got to find the problem to solve and make sure that it's the right problem to solve to
Yeah.
where you can make money off of it because everybody can have a great idea. You know what I mean? That's one of those things. Like you had a great idea with the radio station because look where that idea was 5 years later. I bet those people were like, I wish I would have took him up on this offer
Yeah. Yeah.
because it. But and then you knew the agency was something because you had experience in that side, so you knew that. Like, look, these people suck that are representing for these people. Not all of them, but the majority though.
I
And
didn't
that's
say
how
that. You
that's
said that.
but that yeah, exactly. But that's how it is though in almost every industry, man. I come from the travel baseball world where there's so many travel baseball organizations now versus when I was 12, 13 years old, there was only like 5 that if you were any good in the country, any somewhat good at baseball in the country, they flew us to go play for them. And we'd
Yeah.
play for them. And then you'd play the mom and pop teams from the hometowns and you beat them by 20 runs. And then we'd all
Yeah.
meet up in the later games. But now it's so saturated with, there's hundreds of organizations and then they got
I
10
dealt with
teams
them with
at
my
every,
oldest son. Yeah. That's
right.
crazy.
They have 10 teams at every age group, and it's like, man, there's an A, B, C, and D team. The A team's the only team that has competent players that can catch, and the B team has like 3 or 4 guys. But, it's where's all this going to? It's just a monopolized thing that's oversaturated, and it makes people not appreciate the people that are running it. It's versus, hey, take care of your people like everybody's done in the past, or be straight up with these people. Don't take $5,000 from them for a summer because you want the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that kid's gonna be playing. That kid could be the best engineer ever, but you're telling me he's gonna be a great baseball player. And now his mentals are shattered for 3 or 4 years. It could be it forever for some people.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed that I got to throw a ton. I had 200 appearances in college, so I didn't have to, or
Nice.
250 innings. Sorry, 100 appearances in college. But what's it called? It's just one of those things that it's people try to get the most or try to get the least out of the most amount of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're trying. That's how I put it. And then for you, being the agency, how many people did you know that have agencies like yours when you got into it?
They were just, they're the big New York agencies that were around, and there weren't many, what I call boutique agencies like mine.
Right.
A lot of them
Absolutely.
have popped up. A lot of them popped up over the years. Some haven't survived. Some have. So I don't want to say I kind of started the wave of that, but I
Right.
did.
Absolutely.
But what I tell my clients now is, the large, big agencies with a lot of agents and hundreds of clients, they have their advantages.
For sure.
When they call a news director, hey, they've been around for years and they know them. Well, same with me. I mean, I've been around for years and all the hiring people know me too. So I have the same clout they do, but
Right.
I bring the boutique agency side so that they can't because they're so big. Whereas a lot of the boutique agencies, they haven't been around like me. So I kind of bring the best of both worlds. That's what I say.
And it's cool because you have the background of working with these people, so they know your work as a person on the air versus the people you've sent to them over the years.
Yeah, I'm a journalist. So when I'm dealing with my clients, they like that because I have what I call an imaginary couch in my office. So when my clients are having some issues, And a newsroom is a very unique work environment, where their friends and family might not understand what's going on. Like, clients call
Right.
me all the time, say, "Hey, this is going on. What's going on here?" And we talk it out. Better to talk
Right.
it out than hold it in.
Absolutely.
And the hiring managers like it because again, a news guy. I know what they're going through. They're busy people. They got a lot going on. So I know what news directors go through. So
And then how much do you say that success, how much to that success, how much would you say has to do with you being who you were in the space, before you got into the agency has helped your agency grow through time?
well, I think just again, being a news guy and being a journalist, I know the business.
Right.
Um, I've experienced agents from the other side. So again, treat I'm treating my clients like I wanted to be treated.
Absolutely.
So I know the business. I'm not some lawyer in New York. I can read a contract. Contracts in our business are not that complicated.
Right.
But I think being on the inside and having spent 20 years in a newsroom really, and I know the business, so that really helped me. And the stuff I
Right.
didn't know about running an agency, I've learned over the years. Um,
Right.
so
Trial and error like we do as
trial
humans.
and error, yeah.
Absolutely. How many times you hit that wall before you kept breaking before you broke through it the first time?
Yep. It was a while. I mean, it's you don't make money in this business till you start placing people, and so
Right.
I still remember, um, calling my wife, when I placed that first person. It was amazing. And it was like, wow.
That's awesome.
It took a while.
Right.
'Cause you got to sign clients, then and it's hard to sign them when you haven't had experience and when you haven't
Right.
had success yet. So it's a lot easier now with my record out there, but then it was harder. And then you get people and then get them hired. So it took a while to break through, but once I did, it led to the second one and the third one. Now it's easier to sign clients, and it just builds, and you build that momentum.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's super, super awesome. I think what you do is super interesting because, especially because you're the first I've ever heard about it. So I think it's awesome because I'm very intrigued by stuff like that because my uncle went to school at UGA to trying to be a news reporter.
Okay,
He didn't make it very long. I think he got on TV one time for about 30 seconds and he was like, "Yeah, I'll never be. I'm not gonna be good at this."
I'm out of here. Good to know then.
Yes, because then he went somewhere in I guess Buffalo, somewhere s- northeast. Might have been in Canada, Alberta, or somewhere. But he did some type of reporting school there too as well, and realized that he was not going to be good at that. So now he does finance.
Okay.
But no, the
Finance.
last question I got for you, John, is really, our podcast is called Burn the Ship. And you're a true definition of burning the ship. You worked a full-time job, left a stable income that you were good at. And I know you're good at because look at you now. You don't make it 25 years in what you do now unless you were good or a good person at what you were doing.
Yeah.
So kind of what was that emotion when you burned the ship, and finally went all in? You said, screw it, I can leave. I got a couple kids at home. I got a family that depends on me, but I'm leaving because I feel like I can be successful here. What was that emotion like?
Wow, it was to realize that I could burn the ship was incredibly emotional, and I felt grateful for the success I'd had and the support of my family because I worked a lot. I mean, I was working 7 days a week because I was working on TV and working the agency. So I think it was mostly grateful to my wife and kids for allowing me to reach that point where I could burn the ship. And I remember when human resources at the TV station said, we can't carry you on insurance anymore. And it was like, don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice feeling. Don't need it. And
Man, that's awesome.
yeah.
That is awesome. Well, John, I appreciate you very much for coming. Tell the people where to find you, and then leave them with your last word. I'll give you the last word today.
Well, I appreciate it. Ezra, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed talking to you. I like what you do. I looked at some of your podcasts before I was on. You do a good job. You're good on the air.
Thank you.
It comes naturally to you.
Hey, look, man, if you want to place me, I'll be on TV. I'd do it right now.
You can do it there. There we go. But yeah, if anybody wants to look me up, it's LornaDave.com. So LornaDave.com. So LornaDave Agency. And I'm John, JOHN at LornaDave.com. And I'm on that email all the time.
And we'll attach John's socials down below, so that way you guys can click and see him. And then John, give him a last word today.
Hey, I did what I believed and felt like I could do, and I would say believe in yourself and go do it.
Absolutely, man. Burn the ship. Thank you, John.
Burn the ship.